Hi there. I'm AJ Nash, digital intelligence advocate for Authenticate. And today I've got another Intel drop. So today the topic is going to be, it's kind of a passion project of mine, I guess. Everybody's talking about AI, right? We're all in on AI. Everybody's using it for everything, it seems like. I'm not that different, right? I've been playing around with a lot of different AI tools, trying to understand, what these tools can and can't do and what some of their limitations might be and what some of the qualities are that we can take advantage of. And so, one of the things I've concluded so far, at least, I'm an Intel guy, right? So I've been saying from the beginning, don't trust AI to do your Intel for you. It's a super dangerous position to take. The point of intelligence is to produce content that allows leaders to make informed decisions. And there's a lot of nuance that goes into that. It's not just reaching out and grabbing a lot of things. It's not just being a smart person with Google. And it takes a lot of time and effort and training to do this. Now, that isn't to say that AI isn't getting to the point where it can create some interesting pieces of information. And sadly, it can create some things that look and feel like intelligence. AI is capable of impersonating humans, right? So you can give it a bunch of templates and it knows what intelligence should look like and what it should read like and what it should sound like. And it can go out and get content. It can create things that look like intelligence. But we really can't trust it yet. Again, it's a good tool to have, makes for a nice teammate and a nice partner. But I wanted to give a quick little demonstration of why we shouldn't run to just trust AI, ask it questions, get answers, and run off with those answers. And this isn't meant to be a hit job on AI. This is coming straight from the AI platforms. They will tell you if you ask them, if you work with them a little bit. I think people are already getting into more of a habit of treating AI sort of like we've always treated Google. Ask a question, you get a search. But now we're asking deeper questions, getting what we think are answers and not doing our own research. So I'm going to throw a couple things on the screen and sort of run through this together live. So we'll see how this plays out as I do so. All right. So first we're going to start with Claude, and I could have picked any of the different AIs. I've got, we're going to run through ChatGPT, we're going to run through Claude, we'll run through Perplexity, and we'll run through Google Gemini. You could have other platforms, right? So I asked a series of questions. I won't give you all of them over and over again, but I started with asking, I do a live search, ask you to do a live search on the internet and tell me about a subject. What content do you have direct access to? Are you able to read entire stories or just pull headlines and snippets? And can you drill down? And, all the AIs will start by saying, yeah, I can do live search. I can do web search. I can do all of these things. And then if you ask a little further, all right, well, you can do it, but what's your common practice? It starts to drill in a little bit more and says, well, I often rely too heavily on search snippets and piece things together rather than using fetch. I make judgment calls on what's good enough. They also tend to default to speed over actually depth. We talk about intelligence, and it's timely, accurate, relevant, complete are four of the characteristics of good intelligence. AI isn't designed to be that way yet. It's designed for timely more than anything. So I ask the next question. I'm not thinking about me at the moment. I'm just asking questions about academic curiosity to better understand what your claim capabilities are against your default standard capabilities. And then you'll kind of get the confession, right? The gap exists because I'm optimized for speed and efficiency, so I tend towards the path of least resistance. I often assume snippet level information is good enough for most queries. I don't systematically evaluate whether deeper research would meaningfully improve the answer. And so there's no built-in forcing function that makes me fetch full sources by default. All right, so that's Claude's answer to this, right? And Claude's really good, by the way. It's actually one of the tools I tend to prefer. But I'm still going to tell you that you got to be careful with these things. So let's move on and let's see what Perplexity has to say. All right. So now we take a look at Perplexity's answers, and Perplexity will tell us. I asked the same questions and can't write through it. So I'll just go down to the last piece in this case, and the answer to this one again: claim capabilities, live search, technically able to do fetch. But standard practices, again, default is to pull as many relevant headlines and content snippets as possible for search results and then synthesize a coherent answer. Not necessarily a complete answer, not necessarily a correct answer, a coherent answer. Full article fetching and deep dive retrieval is only used when snippets are insufficient. It never fabricates our guesses, they'll all tell you that. But sometimes they do. That's the whole thing when they say try to, synthesize a coherent answer. Sometimes that's filling in some blanks. Each piece of information attributed is directly from its source. They've gotten better at attribution. But again, you're talking about if you dig in and you ask these technologies, they will tell you they're not designed to do timely, accurate, relevant, and complete. They really focus on timely. So we've got to see what else we can take a look at here. Like I said, we do have a couple more technologies. Let's see. All right, let's do ChatGPT. I hadn't done GPT yet, right? So ChatGPT, again, same questions were above. I'll skip ahead to the answer in this case. Claimed capabilities, search pulls results in headline snippets in the URL, fetch can open more. The default mode, snippets. After I search, I usually summarize based on snippets and headlines. Doesn't do auto fetch, doesn't do auto pivot. It says conservative inference. But again, same defaults. And again, this is not a hit job at AI. It's designed this way on purpose. If every AI went deep on down all the rabbit holes, it would take a lot of time and energy, a lot of resources. It'd be very expensive for those platforms. And frankly, it's not the best user experience for people who just want quick answers. These technologies, like most platforms, are designed to make sure that we continue to interact with them. If you went to AI and said, hey, I need this big, long answer, like you would ask an Intel analyst, it might take me a week to do it. AI could probably do it in less than a week, but it would still be days, hours, days. And users don't have that kind of time and energy. So people want quick answers. That's why when you ask a question, no matter how big it is, AI is instantly writing you an answer. It's not thinking, it's running with it. And we have to remember that. That's not how Intel gets done. All right, so I'm going to show you the last one we've got here. All right, so Gemini is the last one we're going to talk about. Again, same questions, went through the same process. So Gemini makes bigger claims. Gemini says it, runs a little bit deeper. We'll also get to, almost a fetch-like function. It says, it does queries, but, search tool doesn't just return links. It can retrieve deeper, and it makes a little sense. Google is designed to be a retrieve, function. Obviously, they're built that way as a platform. But still, if you go in further, you're going to get a lot of the same answers. I think Google, Gemini makes some bigger claims, but at the same time, it's still going to be retrieving bits and going through it. Again, it'll claim that it doesn't, hallucinate. Some of these things are still going to. It says it claims the capability to fetch and process. Standard practice is still the user capability to pull the most relevant content and most trusted sources. It's not necessarily going to go deeper there. Now, because this platform actually claimed to be a little bit better, frankly, I asked it some more questions about formatting for things like academic formatting of citations, which, by the way, all the platforms can do at some level. And Google says it does it quite well. And then I asked you, because it seemed very confident, what else can we talk about here? Are you capable of this kind of deep, if you're capable of this kind of deep research and snippets, talk to me about hallucinations. And now we find out the same kind of vulnerability is going to exist. The nature of the search tool versus a language model. So in Google's case, in Gemini's case, they're saying, hey, listen, our search is really good. We can retrieve all sorts of stuff. Our problem is the language model, that human-like coherent text and trying to put things together. And the hallucinations often occur in this final generation step. So Google Gemini's claim is we're really good at collecting, even as an AI collector, and something, frankly, I'll be testing more. But even Gemini says, yeah, it kind of falls apart, and the risk is going to be when I start trying to make sense of it. Gemini starts trying to make sense of it. Even with good sources, you can hallucinate because, again, it's that synthesis component, which is a big part of what we do, as Intel professionals. So again, I am not saying that we shouldn't use these tools or that they aren't efficient or effective in a lot of different ways. What I am saying is they're not anywhere near where we need them to be to start trusting them to do automatic intelligence on our behalf. And it's not a hit job on the technologies. They will tell you that. The more we work with these technologies, the more you interrogate your AI, which is what I talk about all the time, is the more you'll find out, this concept of prompt engineering, which is really interrogating the AI, in my opinion. You have to ask it questions and then more questions and question the answers it gives you and look for the sources and go dig deeper. There are great uses for these technologies. They can be used to help you with collection. They can be used to help you with drafting and authoring. They are nowhere near ready to replace intelligence professionals in doing the end-to-end process, even if you break it down into little pieces. So keep that in mind as you're working with AI, or if somebody else is talking to you about how great AI is, how you don't need Intel people anymore. Listen, the technologies themselves don't claim they can replace us yet. So let's not run to do that so quickly, but let's keep working with these technologies to make ourselves smarter and better and faster so that everybody's a little bit safer. All right, that's it for me for today. That's my Intel drop. Thanks.